I don't know that I've ever done a podcast that just features and talks about one story, especially one as dark as what happened in Minnesota yesterday. I don't think anyway, I've ever done that, but we're going to do it today because there's so many different layers and angles to this. And my promise to you is, I promise you, as horrifying, and I mean horrifying and dark and evil as that is and that story is, there is something positive to take out of this. There will be. It's going to take a lot of work. We got a long way to go, but there will be. It may not be what you're thinking, but there will be. I'll give you an update on that and what happened and all the other stuff, and mainly focused on, and we'll get to this, but mainly focused on empty, evil, and I mean evil, soulless creatures in the media. That includes politicians, but I'll just call them media figures, telling you not to pray. This is the most revealing thing of all with this thing. These are the same people that created this. Anyway, we'll get to that. Thanks for being here. I appreciate you. As tough a day as it is, we'll turn this thing around. Thanks for finding Wicked Radio live stream at Pod, part of Wicked Wisdom with Bill Adams, all the socials, audio podcasts too. Let's get to it. You know the details already because it was the number one story in the world. Once again, we got a trans shooter. First part of the story, which is interesting. Completely, totally, almost immediately, not at first, almost immediately identified as trans because of the manifesto that was out there. And that's a big part of the story. Two little kids, two angels, no longer with us. 17 people were hurt. Christian school in Minneapolis, obviously. I'm going to try not to mention this monster's name too much, but you kind of have to. But let me start the whole thing off with this. So I mentioned there, besides the little angels that we lost, that 17 people were also injured. Let me just try to start this whole thing off with some good news. This is the update late yesterday, actually this morning, from Minneapolis. Looks to be the police chief there about the recovery of a lot of the victims. And this actually is some good news.
The question from Matt was, how are the injured students doing? I believe all of them have their parents with them now, and they are all expected to survive. All of the remaining victims are expected to survive. There is a range of injuries, however.
All right. Well, let's take it from there. Let's take that as positive news that there will be survivors, which includes also, by the way, survivors, including some of those kids, because some of them are talking. It's interesting. I'm not going to play them because it's too horrific. Some of those kids that were in that church, and it was an all-school, church gathering, which is what Christian schools will do every once in a while, are talking, and they'll tell their story about it, and they'll tell more, and they'll give more details about this, which is important to the story and the case. Now, let's go back in the timeline a little bit, because when it first happened, like I said, almost immediately, we knew about who the monster was. He's no longer part of this earth anyway. That thing is in hell right now. Before we got the manifesto that was online and posted, before YouTube scrubbed it, before all of that stuff, even though that stuff came out pretty quickly, the same usual suspects and characters, and like I said, the monsters, the soulless, evil monster politicians and media figures were out there trying to tell you right away. Oh, they hated everybody. It wasn't just, this wasn't targeted hate. This wasn't targeted hate at all. And for the first person to say this, Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar. Boy, did this story change.
And he was an all-purpose hater, by the way. Hated groups left, right, you name it. There's no way to pin an ideology on this, and I think people should remember this as the facts come out about this manifesto. But what I learned from this, once again...
There's no there's no ideology at all. Once the facts come out, the facts came out, Amy, probably before you even got off the air during that interview. Oh, they came out all right. What was the manifesto? Let's see some of the pictures that were on here. Defend equality with a semi-automatic rifle on there. Kill Trump now. Kill Donald Trump. Rip and tear. 6 million wasn't enough. That was another one, by the way. Also, this monster was anti-Semitic, so, wanted to kill Jewish people. That was on there. But there's no agenda. They actually tried. And part of that story and a big takeaway is how quickly people like her got out there to try to control the narrative, to try to tell you, no, there's no, it didn't come from us, didn't come from our hateful, discourse saying that Trump is actual Hitler. No, it didn't. No, that he's evil and he hates trans people. No. But the problem is, for people like Amy Klobuchar, the internet lives forever. And even though all this stuff was scrubbed, it came out right away, and we got the actual truth that there 100% was an agenda here. 100%, of course there was. So that got blown up right away, of course. And the other thing that happened was almost immediately, these soulless, demonic, monster politicians and media figures tried to tell you, and they're still trying it today, not to pray. And I thought, and I saw this 5 times, and it went on a lot more than that. And I'm like, why are they, you know how this works, and if there's anything you get from me, it's that you look for propaganda signs when they all say the same exact thing at the same time, almost the exact same way. Those are talking points that are put out. Why in the world did they pick this one? Why in the world did they decide to attack people for praying? This isn't the time for prayer. I don't want to hear about thoughts and prayers. How many times did you hear that today? And I know what they're trying to say. People are taking that to mean you got to do more. You have to take action. I think there's something more. The more and more I hear this today, they are actually attacking prayer. And there's a connection here on this. I mean, there were lots of examples. I'll cherry pick 2 for you. But it started off with the mayor of Minneapolis. Doesn't want to hear about prayer.
And don't just say this is about thoughts and prayers right now. These kids were literally praying. It was the first week of school. They were in a church.
Somewhere in media offices and at probably the DNC headquarters, they decided, yeah, that's what we should go with. Yeah, I don't want to hear prayer. And then it continued all day long. And also, by the way, into this morning, into Thursday morning. Here's another.
As an elected official, you are on the ground with your folks, and you appreciate this journey. I agree with the mayor. I'm not the thoughts and prayers. I'm so beyond that.
Isn't that a surprise? Isn't that interesting that the people who actually created this movement, the exact same people and the exact same movement that told this kid, this monster that wound up killing children in a church for all of his 23 years, this same movement told this kid constantly, over and over and over again that God put him in the wrong body. Isn't it interesting that those same people are telling you they don't want to hear about thoughts and prayers? They don't want to hear about prayers. Prayers don't do any good. Those kids were praying, so it doesn't do any good. Isn't that fascinating? More and more examples. Brian Krasenstein, I don't know what he is. He's some sort of I hate this term, like political influencer or something. I don't know what he is. He was one of the first to put it out there. Here's his post yesterday. Praying is the problem. So he flat out called it a problem, not the solution. People use prayer instead of action. Well, let me tell you something. Prayer does matter. And I don't care who you pray to. It shouldn't matter who you pray to, but find God somehow, some way, because prayer actually does matter. There are now multiple, and I'm not going to play them because it's too heartbreaking. There are multiple news reports from the ground in Minnesota from kids actually talking to news people. I don't know exactly how that happened. And some news reporters relaying the messages from kids saying, I was there and I was praying for my friend and I was praying for my safety and I got out. They were in the situation. They weren't just talking soulless, empty fools, in front of a TV camera saying prayers don't work. Those were actually kids who could have been killed. Don't tell them or you or me or anybody else that prayers don't work, because prayers mean healing. And I'll say it again. It's fascinating that the same people behind a movement that for decades, this entire monster's life, decades, told him God put him in the wrong body, don't want you to pray, don't want you to pray. Isn't that fascinating? Recognize the patterns. Recognize who's saying this. And when those people, those empty, evil, soulless creatures in the media tell you not to pray, pray. In fact, I'll take it a step further. When those empty, soulless, evil creatures tell you to do anything, do the exact opposite. Because they're horrific. They're just horrific people. That includes politicians saying that, media people, this idiot on X saying it. They're awful. They're just awful, awful people. Go the exact opposite direction. But there's no agenda, according to Amy Klobuchar. Right. No agenda whatsoever. That's why he had written on his ammunition, kill Trump. That's why he had anti-Semitic messaging. That's why he said, where's your God now, written on there. But there's no messaging. No, not at all. When you tell a kid for decades that God put him in the wrong body and blame God for all of this, there's an agenda when he decided to shoot up a Christian school in a church. Yeah, there's a message there. There's also a message here for everybody else. It's almost impossible to go out through your daily life and check out every security situation. But any mass gathering of what they call a soft target, and that's a school, and that's a church, and that's a synagogue, and that's a I don't know, community center that's a ballpark. You really should, like, demand, just as a citizen, better security. These weak cowards always pick on the weakest people and where there's no security. There's plenty. There's plenty, especially during back to school time. This is a time, if you want to talk about schools, where you should demand an increased security for your school, wherever your kids go, or your church, or wherever you gather. You absolutely should. It takes a long time to get some action done, but you got to start somewhere. Don't get complacent. Don't get lazy on it. But if there's any positive in this, and it's tough to find, I get it, I'm with you. If there's any positive on this, it's that this pattern recognition is being recognized and acknowledged by almost everybody now. Maybe that's why they went to such a desperate thoughts and prayers don't work messaging. And there's no pattern here. There was no agenda here. Right, okay, sure, right. Like we're going to believe that. Less and less people believe that and buy it. Good example of that is this. Now, it's just one media outlet, but it's got to start somewhere. The cover of the New York Post this morning. The headline in what looks to be like, in the old print media days, they used to call this like war font, like we're at war. It's like takes up the whole page. There's one word headline in this, and it just says demonic. And listen to the byline. Transgender maniac shoots up Catholic school, morning mass, killing 2 kids. Now, even the New York Post, which tends to lean right, when was the last time they actually, on the front page of their publication, actually recognized it, called it, identified it, and weren't afraid to say it, transgender? The reason why a media outlet like that, like again, even though they lean right, so more likely that somebody like the New York Post would print that, they're not afraid to say that anymore because normal people like you and me and everybody aren't afraid to say it anymore. There's a pattern here. Despite what Amy Klobuchar says, and this has nothing to do with trans, there's no trans kid. Oh, yeah, there is. And it's not to pick on them. Nobody wants to demonize them, but you have to recognize a problem and calling out for what it is before you fix the problem, because there is pattern recognition here, and that's a key term. Anytime anybody says, well, you just want to pick on trans kids, no, I want to identify a pattern, because there is one. Mass shooting? Okay, let's go back to the Nashville one. You may not remember that because for good reason. You know why? Because it got buried. This was one of the first ones out there. Some transgender shot up a Christian school in Nashville and had a manifesto, which got buried almost immediately. Now, the difference is that was 2 years ago. So that was when you can't, not even the New York Post would say it's a transgender shooter. You can't say that because you're going to be called the bad guy. Look how things have, that story went away almost immediately because of who the shooter was. But then, well, we started to see more and more of these things. In Colorado, another transgender shooter. And in Maryland. This isn't to pick on them. This is pattern recognition to understand exactly what's happening. Identifying a problem and a pattern here is not a problem. It doesn't make you a bad person. Don't ever let them tell you you're a bad person for recognizing a pattern. It is a problem. And again, it goes right back to this narrative. This is why the media is so powerful. And when it's in the hands of awful, awful people like it is right now, mostly, like the people all day yesterday and today telling you prayers don't work. I don't want to hear about prayers. These are the same exact people, and I'll say it now for the third time today. These are the same exact people who told these mentally unstable people, and they are, I'm sorry, who told them God, they always go to it. God put you in the wrong body. Science and gender-affirming care can fix that for you, even though you're a minor. Same people, the exact same people, and that's the problem. Now add into the mix the fact that they were also given, I want to know what kind of drugs this kid was on. I want to know exactly what kind of hormone-changing, sex-crossing drugs this person was on. Don't tell me it doesn't have an effect on your behavior, obviously. And then let's get to the issue of, well, if he wasn't able to get a gun, this wouldn't have happened. Minnesota, Minneapolis specifically, where he lived, was a very, very gun-controlled area and still was able to get it. So are you really going to push that again, that it's a gun problem, that getting rid of all guns? And now, did you hear this? They're also pushing to get rid of handguns, all of them. So we're not able to protect ourselves ever against the lunatics who were radicalized by the same media people who want to take your guns away. You getting the whole pattern here? You understanding how this whole thing happens and how evil and horrific it is? It's all together, and it's all the same people. They created this. Mentally unstable people, radicalized and weaponized through their own stupid policies. That's what happened. That is what's still happening. Don't ever let them tell you you're bad for recognizing that pattern, because it's happening. And also, here's another good takeaway. You're not alone. You're not alone on this. Everybody's recognizing it. And I will bet you, depending on your social circle or your work situation, there's less people unwilling to talk about it in public now. Don't say it was transgender. Don't say it. Screw you. I will say it, because it is part of the story. It's part of the issue here. Don't be afraid to say that. It's not mean-spirited. It's pattern recognition. And until we start to identify that, until we start to recognize that, the pattern is going to continue. And it's a problem. Ever let them feel bad about that. And again, and I can't say this enough, and I'm sorry it's a one-topic podcast today, and just is, but there's a lot to take away, because this has to stop, obviously. But it has to stop by stopping the people who are continually pushing this message and pushing this. And now they're always the first ones to say, it wasn't us. Oh, it wasn't us. And we don't want to hear about prayers. And there was no agenda. And you should stop. Prayers don't do any good. Don't ever listen to those people. In fact, take it a step further. And if you want to apply any light to this horrific situation, that's exactly what it is. When those awful people in the media, including politicians, tell you to do something or don't do something, do the exact opposite. You'll find your way. It's worked for me. That's all I can say, because they're terrible. I don't know what we're talking about tomorrow, but it's going to be a hell of a lot better than today. It really is, because that's just a horrific story. But I'll leave you with this. Already the prayers are working. As the police officer said at the beginning here, and if you missed it, I'll just give you this little bit of good news throughout this horrific stuff. An update on a lot of the victims. A lot of them are recovering. Here's just a repeat.
The question from Matt was, how are the injured students doing? I believe all of them have their parents with them now, and they are all expected to survive. All of the remaining.
Let's take that. You know what led to that? You know what led to it? Despite what these creatures are telling you in the media and on TV, prayers led to that. That's what did. So pray however you want to and to whoever you want to. Don't ever let them tell you not to. All right. Thanks for hanging out with me. It was a tough one, obviously. But we don't make the news, and we don't make the rules. All I try to do is give you my experience and help you guide through it. That's all, and how we can fix it. Let's talk about that, as well as whatever else is going on tomorrow. Holy cow, we got a Friday tomorrow coming. The weekend is right around the corner. Things are getting better already. Thanks for finding the podcast, the live stream, and the replay on X and on all the social media channels, which is what's called Wicked Wisdom with Bill Adams, because they won't let me say radio on Facebook. Stupid Meta. Anyway, we'll talk about that, and you audio podcast listeners for subscribing. I appreciate you as always. Again, the takeaway, don't listen to the people that created this problem. Do the exact opposite. Be well and pray, because it does work. We'll talk to you tomorrow.